Today, I'll be speaking with Joy Heath Rush about virtual events and the challenge of keeping the firm's clients engaged. In the past couple of months, clients have been inundated with invitations to webinars and video conference roundtables. The challenge for law firms? How to stand out in a crowd. Welcome to Law Firm Weekly. It's really good to have you here. Joy Heath Rush is the Chief Executive Officer of ILTA, the International Legal Technology Association. Prior to joining ILTA, she was VP of Client Development at Litera. Joy also has a 28-year career at global law firm Sidley Austin. Joy, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Shai. It's a pleasure to be here. So happy that you're hosting me today.
So today, we're not going to talk that much about ILTA. I think that in a later interview, I want to have you back if you'll agree. And I want to talk definitely about ILTA, especially about ILTA On, as we get closer to this very important conference. But today, I'd like you to actually share with our audience your insights around virtualization of events. And again, of course, at the center of it is ILTA moving from ILTA Con to ILTA On this year. But let's start with just a quick 30-second high-level what ILTA On is all about as a virtual event, and what are the highlights in your mind of virtualizing this important event?
Yeah, thank you, Shai, for the opportunity to talk about this. I mean, the first ILTA Con, as what we would have called now, was held in 1980, so a minute or two ago. This would have been number 43 or 44, I think, because sometimes there were two in a year. And what ILTA events have always been known for is incomparable education that's developed by volunteers that are both business partners and members, and executed very timely, as well as great networking opportunities. So it's not an ILTA event without those two things. So what we have to figure out is how to do that when we can't do it around the lobby bar at the Swan and Dolphin, which is what a lot of people like to do. So delivering virtual education is something ILTA's been doing a long time, and we feel like it's something we're very good at. But we also need to make sure we're delivering those great virtual networking opportunities and those interactions between members and business partners that people look forward to every year. So we're trying to start from the requirements, always a great place to start at the very beginning, and then build out a virtual experience that meets the requirements, not necessarily a virtual ILTACon, if that makes sense.
I see. So what you're saying is, instead of focusing on the trappings of what is considered to be virtual nowadays, you're basically saying, hey, let's take a step back and figure out what are the basics. What is it that we're trying to do? What kind of information we want to share, and how do we want to share it? And then figure out what kind of non-physical delivery is going to be needed in order to meet those needs.
Exactly. And we're also very much shy looking at this as an opportunity rather than, oh, that's a challenge. Oh, that's a problem. It's like, what opportunities does this open up for us? The opportunities to have speakers that would have been difficult to have before because of the travel involved. Opportunities for people to attend. I mean, at our traditional ILTACon, which is a fantastic event. I mean, we're all looking forward to getting back to in person. But only about 1,500 to 1,800 of our 25,000 international participants can come to that conference. At a virtual conference, that makes it much more accessible for a much wider range of people. So being able to bring that ILTA experience to more people, that is truly exciting. So those are some opportunities we can embrace.
And you know what? This is the perfect segue, because law firms are facing some of the same issues.
Absolutely.
Many of the larger ones have dozens, if not more, events a year. Many of them are physically based. Their clients actually show up in their offices, and they'll have a full program where people meet each other, meet lawyers, meet experts. That aspect, at least for the time being, is gone. From your experience, or at least the curve that you had to go through and will continue to have to go through, what do you think they should focus on in order to add value in a very crowded, webinar-flooded inbox that their clients have?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I would say it always starts with content. So look at a way to differentiate your content. That is, don't do the 50th webinar about how to return to the office. Do the first one, do the second one, or do it in a way that people haven't thought of before. A new aspect to an existing problem or question. Try to be both practical and future focused, not past focused. So, what can I be doing today that will change the trajectory of my business or help me deal with a problem I'm having? And what should I be thinking of about tomorrow? That latter one, I can't tell you what an important point that is in a crisis. In any crisis situation, people are looking at what's the next curveball that's going to be thrown to me? What's the next difficult problem that's going to come my way? You're so busy dealing with today that it's hard to think a lot about tomorrow. So if you're delivering content that says, hey, we know you're busy thinking about today, and guess what? Tomorrow you're going to need to be thinking about this. So start now, then it won't be so reactive. So make sure that you're doing something that's timely yet differentiated.
So I think what you're saying is differentiation is so much about content. And to your point, just to kind of sum it up, think about the future, think about what your clients will be busy doing in 4 months, 5 months, 3 months, or even 12 months, and kind of give them that window in light of everything that is happening right now. So content is still king.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the two other things I would say, though, is one, it's usually advisable to have things be in a little bit smaller bites when they're virtual. 90-minute presentation format doesn't work so well in a virtual environment. A little bit shorter is usually important. The second thing is, in a virtual environment, having an engaging speaker, an engaging moderator, someone who's very skilled at facilitating conversation, you have to bring your A game when it comes to your speakers. Of course, they have to have expertise, but they also have to be engaging. And if you need to have a panel, for example, make sure you've got a facilitator who can really keep that panel moving, make sure everybody gets equal time, responding to questions. That's critical in keeping people engaged.
So the A game also means professionality. Now, again, I've been to quite a few, obviously, law firm events, and those are professionally done. There's just not two ways about it. But you're basically saying you want to go even further in order to basically bring like the most polished event that you can imagine and the people who are at the center of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you have a deep subject matter expertise who may not be your Jimmy Fallon or your Jay Leno, right? May not be your entertaining person. Then it becomes even more important to bring an interviewer, facilitator, moderator who can draw that person out in terms of keeping what they're talking about focused and engaging and moving forward quickly. So it's a lot about how you staff them. Of course, the platform is, you want something with good quality audio, good quality video. You want to be on time. You want to stay within your advertised parameters, but you also want to do the best you can to bring that critical content to light in a way that's engaging.
I want to throw something at you that may actually go on the face of things contrary to what we just talked about, where professionalism is really important, where you want to have somebody at the center of it that, just knows how to draw people out, etc. I'm wondering that in this age, or rather in this period where more and more lawyers are becoming more and more comfortable using virtual environments such as Zoom, maybe there's an opportunity to do a one-to-many in smaller teams that relate to their clients. So the idea, and I was thinking about it as I was preparing for this interview and thinking about the questions I want to ask you, of lawyers who are well-spoken, who have a good roster of clients, who can basically be set up from home reasonably professionally with Zoom, with a nice camera, with a nice microphone, and let them do maybe once every couple of weeks a 20-minute discussion and communications with their clients. And that's an add-on to, of course, the more professional events that the firm will foster. I'm kind of seeing this opportunity because they're becoming more savvy.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation. And I think it builds upon one of those things we've seen in the last, I would say, 10 years as marketing in general has become increasingly professional within law firms. You've seen this idea of client alerts, content briefings, things that are posted on the website, which can then be moved to video, which a lot of a lot of experts will tell you is much more engaging. And I can remember leaders at my old law firm, Sidley, which was a wonderful place to grow up, used to say, one of the things that we think sets us apart is we know our clients' industry better than they know it in some cases, that we have broad expertise around the industry. So having that focus, smaller groups, especially if it's very topic specific. A lot of people are concerned about force majeure clauses, for example, in contracts. That's across contract areas. Do you have a deep expert on that? That's very subject matter focused, or do you have a deep expert on the automotive industry or on the on aerospace and airlines or hospitality? These are all areas right now that people are thinking about the future of those industries. You can really have a one-to-many interaction within that industry in a way that also demonstrates an organization's deep expertise in that area.
The last question I have for you is a bit of a forecast, or is based on this idea, or a forecast that over the next few months, all things being equal and some of the issues will kind of subside, but certainly in countries where there's now a trend towards going back to work, at least partially. And I'm wondering if there will be a blended model where some lawyers will start working from the office, and therefore their presence in a boardroom, from which the conference, or I'm sorry, the event takes place, virtual and otherwise, if that adds any value. Should they start thinking about this idea that when viewers are looking and seeing a boardroom that is well organized, just as they've done before, and has physical people in it, will that add any value?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that there's a kind of psychology piece of this. So, I'm a big fan of Sunday morning news shows, and I've been very interested throughout this entire pandemic era that Margaret Brennan has continued to come in to the studio at Face the Nation every single week, even when she's the only person there, and you can tell that the crew is many, many feet away from her. So I think it depends on what you're trying to communicate, whether we like it or not. I think that when we see something that's very professionally produced in a place that's meant for professional production, our expectation goes up, again, whether we're even aware of it or not. So I think that there is a confidence building aspect to that. I also think you have to consider the effect on the presenter or the speaker. Sometimes when you're behind a lectern, in a big room with a teleprompter and a big screen behind you, in a very professional boardroom, it raises your game. I think it depends on the person. But I think it's going to be mixed for a while, because whether we like it or not everyone is going to feel comfortable coming back into an office environment in the very near future. So we also have to do the best we can to make those home arrangements good. And I think there's absolutely a place for a mixture of them. There's no question about that.
Well, Joy, that's about the time that we have today. I really want to thank you for taking the time and giving us some of your insights. And I really hope you'll come again and talk to us about ILTA On. I have 100 questions to ask you.
I would love to. It's one of my favorite. I could talk about ILTA all day long, Shai. You know that.
Yes.
I've been that way long before I was the CEO, when I was a volunteer, when I was a sponsor. It's always one of my favorite things to talk about.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you, my friend. Take care now. Keep well.